Esposito. I'm an 8th grader at St. Edward's School. This is my 4th year doing declamation, and I'll be playing the part of Uncle.
Hello, my name is Andrew Timmons. I'm an 8th grader at St. Edward's School. This is my 4th year in declamation, and I will be playing the part of narrator and father.
Hello, my name is Tony Esposito. This is my 2nd year doing declamation, and I'm a 6th grader at St. Edward's School, and I will be playing the part of Chester.
We'll be performing Boys Will Be Boys by Weary Holbrook. Mr. Gallup had never wanted to be an uncle in the first place. He knew that uncles were supposed to be able to carve toy boats with their jackknives at a moment's notice and answer questions concerning the home lives of birds, animals, and insects. At the risk of amputating his fingers, he tried and managed, after considerable bloodshed, to transform a cigarette box into a fairly plausible nutshell. By the time his nephew was 5 years old, Mr. Gallup was a seasoned uncle. So when the little lad climbed up into his lap and said, "Hey, Uncle Ned, tell me a story," he was not unprepared. He had at least half a dozen stories in his repertoire, which he had rehearsed.
Very well, Chester. You shall have Once Upon a Time. Once Upon a Time.
That makes Twice Upon a Time, Uncle.
In the middle of a deep, dark forest, there lived... What do you think?
Peter Rabbit.
Ah, yes, Peter Rabbit. Well, one day Peter Rabbit called upon his mother and said, "Oh, Mama, look what I found in the yard." And sure enough, there was something in the yard. Now, what do you suppose it was?
One of those carrots.
Yes, a great big yellow carrot with a bright green top. Now, where do you suppose it came from?
Farmer Brown's garden. Listen, Uncle Ned, who's supposed to be telling this story, you or me?
When the end of the story had been reached, Mr. Gallup heaved a sigh of relief. He patted his nephew on the back and said,
What do you think of that, eh?
I think Peter Rabbit has a mother fixation.
A what?
A mother fixation. He subconsciously identified Farmer Brown as his mother because Farmer Brown had been feeding him carrots all of his life. That's why when he grew up, he couldn't help but eat carrots out of Farmer Brown's garden. You see, Uncle Ned, he was a paranoiac, like Jack the Giant Killer.
Like Jack the Giant Killer?
Yes, Jack had a pronounced psychosis. Of course, he didn't really kill all those giants, but his delusions of grandeur were so large that he was able to convince himself and the entire village he had done so.
Excuse me, I'm going to have a few words with your father.
When Mr. Gallup told his brother what his young son had said, he replied, well, he probably just picked it up from the psychiatrists. You know, we are raising him scientifically with a special emphasis on mental hygiene. Ever since Chester was born, the house has been full of psychiatrists and child psychologists. When he was just 11 days old, they started performing tests on him. Just simple little tests, like tickling the soles of his feet with a feather every half hour and flashing colored lights in his eyes.
What for?
To form his life pattern. You see, all the results of all the tests for the last 5 years have been classified and summarized, and their norm constitutes Chester's life pattern. Beforehand, we can check a chart to see how Chester will react to any given situation. It's a great convenience.
Doesn't he, ever fool you and do something unexpected?
Well, occasionally he does, yes. For instance, the other day he put a tack on Grandpa's chair and Grandpa sat down on it. Now, there's nothing in Chester's life pattern about putting tacks on people's chairs, so we were all surprised, especially Grandpa. But Chester simply stated that he was testing Grandpa's reaction to tactile stimuli. I really think he'll be a psychiatrist himself when he grows up.
Can't anything be done about it?
Well, we'd hate to discourage him as it would disarrange his life pattern. But I will warn you, don't cross your legs around little Chester. The little darling has a perfect mania for testing people's knee jerks, and sometimes he rather overdoes it. Last week when the Reverend Mr. Malsby came to call, he cracked him across the shins with a baseball bat. Now, Reverend Malsby was rather sporting and tried to laugh it off, but his laughter was a bit hysterical. I doubt he'll ever look at Chester the same again. Mr. Gallup went home that day as a sadder, wiser uncle. He immediately went home and indulged in Freud and Jung and Dorsey and Watson in an effort to understand the little Chester better. He figured it was the only way he could establish a mental contact with the younger generation. So the next time he climbed up into his lap and said, "Hey, Uncle Ned, tell me a story." He was able to speak the lad's own language.
Very well, Chester. What story?
Tell me about Red Riding Hood.
Ah, yes, Miss H. A pronoun case of schizophrenia. Overcompensation in the form of daydreams and persecutory ideas. H was the daughter of a peasant residing near Venice, home primitive but comfortable, environment wholesome. Family history shows no hereditary taint, although one brother is said to have played the saxophone. The neurosis from which H suffered reached its crux one Sunday afternoon when she was ordered to deliver a basket of fruit to a grandmother who was ill. This H said with great reluctance because she had to travel through a deep, dense forest, which she imagined was full of animals waiting to devour her. This persecutory idea was so strong that by the time she reached her grandmother's cottage, she imagined the lady as a large, ferocious wolf. She even commented upon the length and sharpness of the lady's teeth, although she had no teeth whatsoever.
Mr. Gallup paused to heighten the suspense of the story. However, the dramatic effect was lost on little Chester. He was fidgeting in his chair and staring out the window.
Shall I continue?
Oh yes, by all means. It's a very interesting case.
But his voice lacked any enthusiasm, and his manner was inattentive. A warm breeze pushed the curtains aside, and a wedge of sunshine pushed across the room. Outside there was a shrill whistle and the leathery plunk of a baseball landing in the mitt.
What was that? Another auditory hallucination?
No, Uncle Ned. That's Tubby Mifflin and Red Hershey and Snooty Wills. They're playing one old cat.
I see.
Although, Red is only a high-grade moron, and the psychologists say I shouldn't associate myself with low IQ people. Although he does have one peach of a roundhouse, and Snooty can feel. He picks them right out of the air.
Perhaps, Chester, you would like to go out and study their reflexes?
Really? You won't tell on me?
No. Indeed, if you intend to be a psychiatrist, you must study all aspects of life. The more on the merrier.
Ideal, Pepper. Batter up. Whoopee!
As Chester ran out the room, Mr. Gallup shook his head and smiled to himself. He said,
After all, the best efforts of psychiatrists will mean nothing. Boys will be boys and not guinea pigs.